I'm Laura from Garden Sanity, and today I'm taking you on a tour of our backyard garden bed. This bed is anchored by our Limelight Hydrangea Tree. The bed features lots of flowers starting in early spring with daffodils and ending with the dried flowers of the Limelight Hydrangea Tree in the fall. And in between, there's all sorts of blooms, never at the same time. This bed's a work in progress. So far, all of the plants in here are perennials, and they come back each year. So let's start with the Limelight Hydrangea Tree. So the Limelight Hydrangea Tree is looking really good. There's a link above so that you can watch previous videos, because this tree had storm damage last August from a tropical storm, and it was already top heavy because I hadn't pruned it as properly as I should have. So let's kind of take a little walk towards it. You can see how nice and lush the growth is. This tree had been around probably 10 feet tall, and I had to take it down to about 6 feet. So many of the stems had just broken off. And the back, let me take you around to the back to show you what that looked like. Let me do a side view. Pardon any sun glare. But do you see how the back of the tree, it's a little more even now. It's still a little lopsided, but last year, oh my goodness, it was so lopsided. So here is what the back looks like now. And it's definitely filling in, which is nice. In fact, I even have this funny stem right here. It's kind of, I don't even know where that one's shooting out from. But I'm keeping it because it's in the back. So I've got to keep an eye on the tree, but I think it'll do a lot better this year. So you can definitely watch those other videos to see how I prune the tree and what to do if it gets top heavy, and also what to do if it gets a lot of salt damage from tropical storms. So right here at the edge of the bed, we have a row of Arborvitaes, which look really nice against the green woods, well, a little bit of woods behind our fence. That does a nice job of hiding a lot of the white vinyl fence, which can kind of drive you nuts after a while. Although it was here when we moved in, so we saved a big expense from having to put fencing in. Anyway, I digress. So last year we had, in this whole area, we had 3 Fire Hydrangeas, which are mophead hydrangeas, and then we had here and here we had 2 of the big leaf mophead hydrangeas. Large ones, never knew what they were. There was never a plant tag on them. Long story. I'll link above to another video where you can kind of see why we got rid of them. What we replaced them with, we had actually had this as a dwarf burning bush, and we had this in a nursery bed down there, another project, but this long bed we were using as a holding bed, because we bought it sort of on impulse, never knew where to put it. So now it's got a nice home here, which is great. Except in the springtime it had some rabbit damage. So the pandemic rabbits definitely did their job this winter and spring. So right here, I don't know what I'm going to plant just yet, but nice room for something. And then in here, we've got 3 Candy Love Hellebores, and they're part of the Winter Magic series. And I just planted them this spring, so I have not yet seen them bloom. But the blooms that I've seen on the picture, which I'll show you here, are a mix of pale yellow, cream, and pink flowers, it says. So these look like they'll be beautiful, and they're upward facing hellebores. Some of them are not upward facing. What I also love about these is when you get real close, they smell almost like skunk, and it repels rabbits. That's a good thing. You got remnants of daffodils here that I cut. And then you've got beautiful verbena. Isn't that pretty? So the verbena, sometimes people call it a pass-through perennial. I think that's what the term is. But you can see how light an area it is. You can see through it. It's just beautiful. It grows really tall. All of my verbena all over my backyard is from one original plant that we planted years ago. It self-seeds like crazy. But the seedlings are easy to identify. In fact, let me show you what one looks like. Or several look like. I left these here in place for two reasons. One, so I could show you what the seedlings look like, and two, I'm going to dig these up and plant them somewhere. These are really easy to control, so even though they self-seed like crazy, they don't root that well. They're very shallow, so they pull out. They're probably the easiest, if you think of them as weeds, they're the easiest ones to pull out. But I love them, and in fact, I have another little batch that I planted in the spring. I transplanted from another area, and I'm gonna cut these back since they're getting tall and going right underneath the Limelight Hydrangea Tree. Isn't it beautiful? So the thing about Verbena Bonariensis is it grows really tall. In fact, these are taller than me. And I'm 4'11" and a half. So what you can do is you can cut them. And I do this a few times a season. Is what I'll do is come down here. I'll find a set of leaves that you can see, these are all kind of jutting out, and I'll just cut it right above those. And it'll grow back super fast and more blooms will come. So when you cut these off, you're going to forego the blooms at the top, but it's not a big deal. Now, you've probably been wondering what this is. Well, I'm growing a stick. Ask a dumb question, right? Yep, I'm growing a stick. There you go. What this actually is supposed to be, is an Appalachian Red Redbud tree. Got it as a bare root plant. I won't name the mail order company because they've been really nice, but I don't want to also give them a bad rep because this isn't taking. Now, there's still a chance it might take, but I did plant it mid-April, right after I received it from them. I followed all the directions. And it's supposed to bud out, and I'm not really seeing buds. And over here, you know, is that little guy right there, is that a bud or no? That remains to be seen. Now, if you're wondering what this plastic guy is down there, that's just a protective covering. I got them on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description box below, but these are the easiest things to use. I'll have to demonstrate more in another video because they are adjustable. Let me see if I can get in here. You can kind of adjust them to any size, and it basically just prevents rabbits from nibbling on them. Rabbits love to nibble on redbud. They love to nibble on crab apples, all kinds of trees. And what's nice also is these you can just stack on top of each other, which is probably what I'll do in the winter time. But anyway, that's what that is, and they come in different colors, so you can try to match them to the bark. I wasn't that concerned. So that's what this is, and hopefully it'll be a stunning tree someday. We'll see. Not sure. So this boxwood that's in the sun, and this one that's still in the shade this morning, these are called true dwarf boxwoods. They're also known as English boxwood, and they are very slow growers with rounded habits. And when we first planted these, I think I have a picture of them to share with you, they were really small. In fact, we had them in another garden and we just put them back here. Not sure where to put them. But you'll see what I just did. I don't know if you can see it sideways better. See how I just cut into it? Because it was growing right over the sprinkler heads. So I need to come in here with hedges and maybe reshape them into smaller boxwoods. In fact, that is a project. We'll see how well I can do it. I don't know if I'm going to do it as well as some of the amazing English boxwood shapers that are out there. But that's what I got to do. And then this plant that you see here, this is Japanese anemone party dress. So Japanese anemone party dress is an aggressive spreader. So it's here, it's there, and if we come over here, you'll see it's there. Oh, it's everywhere, isn't it? Yep. So the first few years it seemed pretty contained, and I just kind of let it go. I had more coneflowers and things like that before all the rabbits came in and ruined everything, and then it looked beautiful because it was more of a wild looking garden. So I don't mind the look of this at all, and in fact the flowers are gorgeous. I will put up a picture here now so you can see what they look like. They start in August and go into the fall. My problem is that anywhere there is a place to hide in this bed, rabbits seem to want to make a nest. So I think what I'm going to have to do is trim this back even more, and I'll show you a problem I already had with the rabbits coming up. So that's what this is, Japanese anemone. So as you can see, I have all kinds of perennials in the bed, but they all don't bloom at the same time. Not a bad idea to stagger the color. Now, this is the post bloom of the peach blossom Astilbe. So now it just looks like dried flowers, and I'll leave these on for a little bit. They still look okay. Eventually I think they kind of look yicky. So these are nice. I have one here and one back there. These were originally in our front yard. We're getting way too much sun. They definitely prefer more shade. They're happy back here. The thing I don't like about them is they don't bloom very long. I know that you can buy Astilbes, you can plant Astilbes rather, that all bloom at different times and get sort of a continuous thing of color. I think I might try that. But I do like them when they're in bloom. I just wish it was longer. This fun thing is a very cheap spotlight that's solar. Underneath the upside down terracotta saucer are the little wires that just connect the one part to the other. It's a spotlight for our Limelight Hydrangea Tree, and it works as well as if it was expensive landscape lighting. It's really great. I don't even remember, I think we got it at Home Depot, but I'm talking years ago. So if they still have something like that, go get one. This boxwood, which definitely looks different than this boxwood, which has some kind of hole in it, which might be a nest, so I don't want to go too close. The birds love making nests in these. But this boxwood's a winter gem boxwood. I love these. These are beautiful, lush, hardy. In the wintertime, they do take on more of a coppery cast, especially if they're in more windy conditions. But you wouldn't believe how fast they bounce back turning green. It's almost like magic. So this is great. I cut this back. I'm not too fancy with it. I don't try to be perfect, but birds also love to nest in this. Little brown birds that are just so cute. So that's our boxwood. So next to the boxwood, I planted 2 Blue Star Kalimeris. I have these in the front yard and I absolutely love them. So snagged a couple to put back here. Did a dumb thing, and the first time I planted them, I planted them in another part of this garden. I tried to stick them in right next to the Astilbe where there was absolutely no room, and they were miserable and cried. And I apologized and dug them up, and now they're blooming for me. So I think they forgave me. But they're pretty. These bloom, I'm not exaggerating, all season. These will be covered with blooms more and more as the season goes on, and it goes into the fall. It's amazing. Perennials, easy care, I don't do anything to them. A lot of what you see on them in terms of some of these brown heads were from the miserable phase where I didn't plant them correctly because I have no idea why. Back here, a remnant of a Kramer's red winter heath. You see this hole? I had a huge Kramer's red winter heath back here. I started cutting it back because rabbits made a nest back there, and back here rather. They hadn't completed the nest, in other words, there were no babies yet, but they kept coming back every single time. I put everything down possible, repels, all that stuff. So I began cutting back some of the overgrown parts of the Kramer's red winter heath, and what I was left with was this stub. I went a little nuts. I was a little angry. So as you can see though, this stub has put on a ton of growth already, so I'm happy about that. I will come out here and come back and dig up this Japanese anemone that's trying to take it over, but I have plans for a plant here and a plant back there, so I'll tell you about that in a second. Got remnants of daffodils, and then right next to the Kalimeris we have two Dianthus, one annual and one perennial. The annual, I don't remember the name of it, but it was supposed to be annual years ago, about maybe 7-8 years ago, and it still comes back. Looks beautiful in bloom, and then it kind of peters out. And then this one, this is a perennial, and this is called Vivid Bright Lights, and I've only got one vivid bright light to show you. But again, when this is in bloom, it's beautiful, and then year round you get this evergreen color, which is nice. So just down from the Dianthus is what looks to be a small blue salvia. This small blue salvia was actually a huge blue salvia a little earlier this season. Until we had a storm, it flopped it over in half, and then looking out from the window, I noticed the stems were moving, and of course I thought, well, that's odd. What would be doing that? Surely it couldn't be the pandemic rabbits, because they do not like salvia. And I came out to find a rabbit literally gnawing the fallen over stems away from the plant. I don't know, again, if he was trying to make a nest. So I had to cut this all the way back, and it's rebounding nicely, but all those blooms were just gone. So next to the salvia, you can see that I planted in a circle some cat's pajamas catmint. Let's try to get in close here so you can see what they look like. Very pretty. These also supposedly repel rabbits. So I'm going to have them play a guard, be a sentry around our lavender chiffon Rosa Sharon. Because the rabbits, just the other day in fact, I found another stem bitten off. This should be a lot larger than it is, but the rabbits have been attacking it each year. So what I did in the spring, you can still kind of see it. Some of them are still visible, but I planted a ton of daffodils around this. You can see there's some remnants of it right there, remnants of the daffodils. So that protected them in the springtime, and then I cut them back when I put these in, and the rabbit just went right in between them. So I think I'm gonna have to leave the daffodils on up even longer just to deter them. But this is looking good. I mean, it's, you know, I wish it was bigger, but the flowers are gorgeous when they bloom. This plant should eventually get to be 8 to 12 feet tall, which I thought would be a nice counterbalance for our Limelight Hydrangea Tree. So we'll see how that goes. Now, before I get to the last few plants I wanted to show you, I did want to mention what I'm planning on putting here, where the other Kramer's red winter heath was, or where parts of it were. There were 3 different plants. I had to remove 2 of them. I want to put an Amsonia stormcloud right there. And then right over here, I want to put a Sedum autumn fire. And these will both be new plants for me. Now, the Amsonia stormcloud will have already bloomed for the spring. It's more of a spring into summer bloomer. So the description says, near black stems and olive green silver veined foliage, billowing periwinkle blue star-shaped flowers cover the foliage in late spring. So I thought that that would look pretty. And then probably as that's fading is when the beautiful periwinkle blue flowers of the Kalimeris start up. So I thought that would look really nice. Sedum Autumn Fire offers all the usefulness and wide appeal of the classic Sedum Autumn Joy, but more intensely red brick color in the fall. Strong stems remain upright, and you can let the dried flower heads remain on the plant for winter interest. And since I like to do that with all my hydrangeas, I thought it'd be nice to have some more dried flowers for the winter here. Now I know that the autumn fire is definitely rabbit proof. I'm not going to be 100% on the Amsonia, so we'll see what happens. And then the final plants in this bed are newly planted again. I did a lot of new planting this year. These are the little quick fire hydrangeas. And just the other day I did a video on why I planted these in place of the Pia hydrangeas that I had here. And the Pias were suffering from black spot. In fact, you can see that video. There's a link above. But when I filmed this the other day, this plant had more buds on it. Now it looks like it's even getting more sun and getting the flowers going. This one definitely has all the flowers going. I like how they sort of have a lime green cast to them almost, or a pale, not lime green, let's see, what would we call it, like a pistachio green color as they start out. And then the white is just stunning. And the detail on the petals, I mean, look at that. You see that? That's beautiful. So eventually these little quick fires, let me back up a little bit so you can see them in context of the bed. Eventually they are going to get 3 to 5 feet tall and wide, very similar in how little lime hydrangeas grow. These start out white and eventually the color over time fades, and it'll fade to like a very nice deep red color. And in the far bed, which is another project I'll be showing you soon, I just planted another hydrangea with similar color habits, that it turns from white to red, and that is a Firelight hydrangea. Once I get the rest of the plants in, I'll definitely freshen up the mulch. But I like it already with more variety since we ripped out the mophead hydrangeas that just weren't working for us. They were covered in black spot. Like I said, you can watch a video about it. And I just felt like life is too short to be miserable with your plants. I mean, look at the leaf color on this hydrangea. There's no black spot. There's no worry. It's a beautiful deep green color. It's just stunning. So that completes the tour of my backyard garden bed. It's definitely a work in progress, as all our gardens always are, right? I mean, whether we like it or not, that's what happens. And that's not a bad thing. That's why we love gardening. So I'll keep you posted on how the new plants are looking once I plant them, and how the Limelight Hydrangea Tree looks once that starts blooming. And more garden projects are on the way. So until next time, as always, happy gardening.